What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning into the podcast. My name is Zeke.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're just two dudes from church. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in to the podcast. Today, we'll talk a little bit about entering into the mind of a PK. If you don't know what a PK is, that's a pastor's kid. And if you hadn't known already, Gabe and myself were both PKs, pastor's kids. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that goes on up here.
Oh man,
there's a lot that goes on.
So we're gonna try to, peel it back a little bit for you guys, to give you a better understanding of kind of what we went through and stuff like that, right? So I think we start at the beginning, right? Did you ever feel, just you now, like everything you've been through, everything you and your family have gone through, have you ever felt that tug of going into pastorship?
Yes, and you can probably testify as well as that the tug is strong. We both come from big families that, we're in church, fathers, grandfathers, just everybody in our family. Yeah. Whether you're pastor, prophet, it's something like they see you and they say, we both come from that.
You're next in line.
From that lineage, and it's like, guess what? You're next in line, and you're standing there and you're going, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I think on my end is more of I got it pretty young, around I would say 11ish. I got a word pretty much saying that's what I'm going to be doing. But again, 11. Yeah, at that age, what do I know, right? What did I know we were going to get ourselves into? Yeah. Like I didn't know anything about it, right? But you were. Because my dad got into pastorship, we were younger too. We were probably around that age. You were a little older.
Yes. So my father became pastor in October of 2009. So I was 18 years old. So I was a little bit mature.
So we hope.
To say the least, yeah. Just a little bit more mature. So I knew that it came with, all these responsibilities. But I remember my father having the talk with us. My father for a couple years, and because I was born in Middletown, New York, and my father, throughout the years, he's also a musician. So throughout the years, the responsibility came greater and greater. He became co-pastor, but eventually he got the calling. The father called him saying, You're gonna pastor one day. You're gonna be a pastor. So, long story short, my father. It's funny because my father had the conversation with your father, and they sat down. And originally, the plan was, to go to a church, in Lancaster, but our plans are not his plan. We acknowledge that, and my father, being a very dedicated man that he is, he did everything possible to reach that goal. But the father had other plans, and after that conversation that my father had with your father, I remember he came home and he reunited the family, and we were in the living room, and my father said, "Hey, listen, this was the plan, but through prayer and all that, there's another church that's been presented." And he told us, and as a family, we told him, if we understand the calling that the Father gave you, and where you go, we follow. And I always say, I like to compare it to the story of Abraham, because we know that the Father called Abraham, leave your land,
go to unknown territory.
My father, he had his family, all of it. My family, all of them. They were all there. His job, everything. It was like a comfortability for us. So I feel like it wasn't just that my father was being a pastor, was that we were making a giant move.
And was that your first actual move?
Yeah, so that was the first actual move, and it was a different state, and it's like close to a 3-hour ride.
Yeah, that right there, that right there for anybody is already tough. But now you're going into pastorship as a family now for the first time.
In an unknown, like for me, all I knew was where I was born and raised. Yeah. That's all I knew. And now I was coming into a new territory and a new responsibility, because not only was my father pastor, but the church I came from, there was already a drummer. And now it's like, how I put it, my father was promoted. I feel like the whole family got promoted. Like everybody got promoted.
All hands on deck.
And that's, as a PK, you sometimes have to assume that responsibility. Like, now it's not just me, it's sometimes going to be you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, by that age, we were already like in 3-4 different churches.
No, that's different. That's different. I would have lost my mind, bro.
But okay, so now you guys, your dad has a conversation with you guys. You guys are all on board, which is awesome to hear, right? Because that doesn't happen every single time in pastoral families, right? So now you're transitioning into being a pastor's kid. Did you feel any of the pressures that came with that? Did you feel all eyeballs are on me now?
Yes. That's definitely a thing now. It's all eyes. Whether you may think, nobody really but it's the way I put it is that you now become that reflection of who your father is. Yeah. So now it's like, it's not just Gabe. It's El Hijo de Pastor, the pastor's kid now. You gain a title without even wanting it. You're the pastor's kid now. And
we kind of not. I don't want to make it sound like this because it sounds rough. Like you kind of lose your identity because now that your dad accepted this, people need to understand that it's not just the pastor, right? It's everything that comes with it, which is your family. This becomes a family ministry because you're going to go through the things your dad's going through now, because you're going to see, like we said, we see behind the closed doors.
Yeah, but nobody else
sees. No one else sees. So how did you feel in those moments? Was that new to you? Was that shocking to you? Because being called into pastorship also comes with sacrifice, also comes with some hurt. It comes with a lot of things. And you were already... you were older than me when I became a pastor's kid, but how was that different for you?
Oh, well, that you couldn't have put it better. There was a lot of things that people don't see, and there's a lot of tears that are shed, and my father sometimes would try to keep that to himself. Being that he was the pastor, he was like, I don't want this to affect my family. And there was a lot of times where, I would think, my father had to make himself accessible to everybody and anything at any time, because you're the pastor now, whether you like it or not, whether you have time, you have to make time. And Pastor, I need you to pray for me. Pastor, I need you to do this. But who was praying for our dad while they were pastors, Our pastors, they would see our fathers as like superhuman. Oh, they're the pastor. They're men of Yahweh. They don't, No, our fathers were human as well. They went through some stuff. Even my dad sometimes was being sick would go to church, and I would tell him, Dad, take a day off. No, there's no days off. They were dead. Our fathers were dedicated men.
Yeah, I think. And that's one, at least I can speak on my end. I know your end too. Is like, that's one of the things we were shown, right? Dedication, responsibility. Is like,
yes.
No matter how we're feeling, we have a higher calling to protect and to do, right? And like you said, it's like, I've seen my dad in the worst of days, and he has to go up and preach, and he has to go up and do these things because someone has to do that job, right? That responsibility, not a job, that responsibility, because like you said earlier, when you get a calling, like you said, your dad spoke to you guys and said, I feel he's giving me this calling. It's different, right? It's a different kind of calling. And that's why I want people to understand is like, not everyone is called to be a pastor. Just because someone's has the title of a pastor doesn't mean they have the calling to be a pastor, right? There's a difference with accepting to be a pastor and being called into pastorship. Because like you spoke about earlier with Abraham going into a new territory, as humans, we're going to look at that as crazy.
It's like, I'm good here.
But Abraham understood that who was walking with him was someone more powerful.
And
right?
that's the thing. We speak about the tears that were shed, but like as far as like when my father was called and we made the step to become pastors of Philadelphia, I also saw how Yahweh would confirm it over and over again, and I was the one that called you here and backed him up. And you would sit there and think like, we've been here X amount of years and Yahweh has not failed us once, whether we've gone through our ups and downs, but he hasn't failed us not once. And you see that and you go, wow, like, you could see it, like,
and that's good. Cause like we've seen, the pain that sometimes our parents go through because the love they have for the church, the love they have for the families in the church, you start to build relationships with people, right? You start to build relationships with families that, like I said, our families begin to grow, right? Yeah. And I know, I think on my side, like I always felt like I was sharing my dad, right? Because, and never saying that my dad never took time out for us. My dad was pretty good.
We had the best dads.
Yeah,
Shout out to our dads.
He was pretty good at breaking it up. So always spending time with us, doing things for sports with us. But also we understood that he had, like you said, our dads were musicians, they're singers, they're teachers.
Much more.
So it's like, no matter what happened, like you said, like responsibilities, someone doesn't come and they're supposed to preach, they're supposed to direct, they're not there. Who's going to go do it? The singers ain't coming. Hey, he's gonna go play, right? There was always something to do. So yes, we had to learn how to share our time with our parents. But we also I took out of that, as like I said, is that work ethic that I think has helped us today, right? But another question that I had for you is in that moment, right? Now you're in a PK. Your dad's been there. How many years were you guys were in Philly?
9 years.
9 years, right? In that time, did you ever feel a point of unfairness of how you were treated with certain things? Because I can answer this one real quick, but
I mean, honestly, like as far as aside from knowing that all eyes are on you, I really didn't feel a sense of like it's not fair to the point where, okay, like I said before, that you're no longer, your identity changes. Yeah. It's no longer, if anybody that knows me, I joke around a little bit here and there, whatever.
A little bit?
But maybe a little bit too much. But, they see that and they go, oh, he's a, charlatan or whatever. Yeah. But it's like, that's the pastor's kid. He's not just any other guy. He's just the pastor's kid. So they see the level is different. And yes, in some way it wasn't fair. It's like,
See, on my end, I felt unfairness all the way through, right? Because I think, at least on our boys, like, you see it in the youth now, it's like, oh, well, they get to do it. Why they, right? And our boys, like, I wanted to go out and play. But we had, as pastors' kids, we had
we got to go visit this person. We got to go pray for this person.
We're not even going to get to it because we can go into, like, church is over and we sit in there another hour or two, right? Because we're waiting for it's just, and then you call your mom up, your mom, and then what happens? She ends up in the conversation sometimes too, and then you're stuck there, right?
It's like, listen,
I didn't sign up for this.
After church naps.
Oh man,
you're cutting into my nap time.
Yeah, no, but it's like, that time again, we were younger, right? But that's how I felt. It sometimes is like I wanted to, not have all these eyeballs on me all the time, because I felt, in a sense, I don't know if you felt that way, but like sometimes I felt that I had to try to be perfect. I know no one's gonna be perfect, but I had this sense of like I have to, because like you said, whatever we do reflects our Father.
Yeah, and that's true. That I always saw that as whatever I do, it's a reflection of who my Father is. So that would be like the driving force. Like, all right, what I do, I have to carry myself a certain way because it'll all go back to my Father. My Father's gonna hear about it, whether it's good or bad. And I didn't want that. Especially it came to a point in time where maybe you've experienced where we had to basically dip our toes in that pastorship. Maybe not pastorship, but we got a little taste of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think not luckily, but in both our positions, we have both been in a position to step into the closest thing to being a pastor, which is co-pastorship, right?
Co-pastorship, yeah.
So I know for me, I've had it two different ways. So I've been in a program where our church at that time it did 3 months each, and we kind of split it.
Right. Yeah.
And that was under William Laguna. I had that privilege of doing it. So I was co-pastor for 3 months there, and then I had another stint as a co-pastor, like legit for a year or two under my father. So I've gotten both ways. Now, it's like anything else, right? It's like when we play music, we preach, we do all these things, right? We start to take things from certain people, and then we kind of create and make it our own, right?
Yeah.
So under in that time frame of me being co-pastor, you start to learn certain things, because we're pastors because already, so we already have a foot in, or we kind of understand things. But now, like you said, we're thrust into a position of responsibility. Yeah. It kind of changes it. It kind of puts a fire under you a little bit more. It's like, no, now people are counting on me. Now people are relying on me, right? So it changed in that way. But I think what really helped me was, like I said, I got to see two different styles, and I've taken what I've liked from both and their strengths and the things that have helped me, and even other pastors that I've seen that I like the way they do things, the way they present themselves. You start taking these things and you start in your head being like, if I was a pastor, this is kind of how I would do it.
What would I do?
This is how kind of I think I would want to do things, right? So, but I believe you also.
Yes.
At one time, right?
Well, I didn't have as much experience as you had. I was co-pastor under my father in Philadelphia. He also implemented the 3 months. It was four of us, two being my brother. And luckily for me, the 3 months that I became pastorship, if anybody here knows my dad, he on occasions passes kidney stones. And for my luck, during those 3 months, my dad was passing a kidney stone. And not only that, it was a week of feast of the unleavened bread. Ooh. So I feel like I got the short end of the stick between the four of us. And
your brothers are cruising.
They listen, I don't even want to get there. I honestly, like, it was good for a couple weeks, and you kind of, you get the responsibility. My father would let me do certain things, like, all right, I want you to be there earlier. Yeah. I want you to be the last one out. I want you to be to close the church. And it's funny because we would see our dads and how they would rush the church, like, we need to be the first ones there. And then when you're put in that position, absolutely. Listen, I'm screaming at people like, if y'all not in the car in 5 minutes, y'all stay in the church. You're not going to church. But so my father was going through that for that whole week, and my dad would try to fight it, and he just, it was too much, and he's like, I can't. And I was going to church, opening up the church. There was once where somebody was supposed to direct, and they couldn't make it, and then it was like, well, Pastor, what you gonna do? And it's like, who? I'm like, you the pastor. What are you gonna do? I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to assume that role.
Yes, sir.
As far as doing everything else, the prayer, the bendición at the end, the blessing at the end. So, funny thing, after like 3 days of my dad not going, I joked around with my dad. I came home after that third day and I was like, Dad, if I don't see you in church tomorrow, I'm gonna put you in discipline. Put you in discipline now. And it made my dad laugh, but it made him laugh, but he understood like, all right, he's taking it. He's doing what he's got to do. And, you know, eventually he got better. But the one thing I could basically learn from that experience was that I needed to be prepared with anything, not only with, you know, somebody calling out that was supposed to direct, or that could have easily been somebody last minute. Oh, listen, I was supposed to bring word and I'm not coming, or I'm sick, or my car broke down. Now you have to assume that role. And I got advice from some of the members, you know, what I was doing good. I got constructive criticism. I'm not going to say negative, but constructive criticism. Hey, why don't you, you know, do you think you could do it like this? Do you think you could do it like that? And I would start to feel the pressure. And I said, this is 3 months, you know, we don't think that our fathers were doing this for years. You know, and I know for you, there's multiple different churches.
Because even as kids, we don't see, like, they don't tell us everything, right?
Yeah, that's
like, we see what we see, but they don't tell us everything. And I think, but that's also like you said, I think you got like, just same as we got a taste of the responsibilities that came with being a leader, right? At least for me, I see a good leader as, you know, like you said, something needs to get done, right? A leader never should be, I'm too good to do a certain thing in the church, right? Yeah. Like I said, a leader for me is you need to roll up your sleeve, and I need to clean some toilets and mop the floor, if the guy that
cleans the church can't do it for a week, hey, right? Guess who's there?
And I think that's one thing, you know, my dad's instilled in me is like, you know, always is like, let your yes be your yes, right? All we have is our word. It doesn't matter if 2 people to the show, whatever, but you're there. You said you're going to be there. You said you're going to do something. I should never, leadership is not a form of dictatorship. It's not just me going, you do this, you go do that, right?
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do that, I should not ask someone else to do that, right? That's what I was taught. Is like, if I'm telling someone, right, because in a leadership position, in any form of leadership, our job is to lead. Our job is to teach and to instruct, because some people don't know what they're doing. And as leaders, we have to show them how to do it so that, yes, it takes the burden off of our dads, off of our parents. Because also what can kill them is they just want to do everything themselves. That's going to burn them out. We've seen that.
That's a problem. Yeah, and that's a problem. But it's so true what you were saying. I've seen, and I know you can testify as well. We've seen our dads do things where we sit there, I'm like, Dad, why are you doing that? You know, there's somebody else can do that. And it's like, no, I'm going to do it. And it's like, they do anything possible. You know, if we look at the scripture, what the scripture says about pastorship or shepherd, you know, at those times, it was, you know, it was a man with staff, and he looked over his sheep, and sometimes it got dirty. Sometimes he had to do things that, you know, he had to get down and, you know, and I would say in that sense, you know, I've been, you know, for a couple years, and I got a taste of it. I'm still doing it, just not as often as I used to, but a taste in that where, in that form of pastorship, where I would feed those, you know, who were hungry, or give out clothes that for those that needed it, to pray for people that I didn't know, you know. And I think about Yeshua, you know, our Messiah, what he did, you know, and just in that umbrella of pastorship, where I was able to, on a weekly basis, just that street ministry, just overseeing a group of people, and just giving, because pastorship, that's what it is. It's a lot of giving. It's a lot of giving. And in that sense, I make comparison, you know, with the scriptures as far as that, where sometimes, you have to do whatever it takes, whatever is possible for, you know, for the ultimate goal, you know.
And then to bounce off that, I think, you know, in one of our prior episodes, we talk about that spiritual grind, right? Putting in that extra work.
Yeah.
And like you just said, our fathers, our mothers, you know, when they're putting in these forms of leadership now, that they're giving, where they're receiving from, right? And that's where they went into that secret place with their Heavenly Father, right? I remember, you know, me being in my room and I'm hearing my parents praying their campaigns with sackcloth and the tears they cry, because, like I said, you start to grow relationships and feelings get involved. We're human, right? And other people in certain positions that they have, or the unlucky, you know, bounces they've gotten in life, as a pastor, you start to feel that, because we want the best for the people that we're leading, right? And that was, for me, sometimes that was the hardest part, is like, you know, looking back into that as a pastor's kid, is like, I wouldn't sign up for that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be in the back, be like, oh yeah, pick me. I want to be like,
you see what your father goes through, and you're kind of like, you're sitting there scratching your head. And this is me at like 18, 19. You sit there, you questioning it, and you hear people saying, "Oh, you're gonna be the next pastor. You're gonna do this," and I'm like, I don't want to go what he went through. I don't want to, you know what I mean?
It's tough, right? And I know as kids, we probably didn't make it easier for them, right? Like now, do you feel at one point, instead of making it easier for your parents or your dad, you may have made it harder?
Listen, I'm gonna be
because
honest.
I know you and your brothers were jokesters.
Yeah, we were a handful. Off the top of my head, I can't pinpoint. Maybe my dad's watching this and like, yeah, right, you know what you did.
I can tell you a bunch of stories.
I can tell you a bunch of stories. We're gonna get him on the podcast, but you know what I mean. I always saw it as that whole reflection thing. Like I was just as willing to say, okay, if you need me to bring word, you need me to direct anything that needed to be done in the church. We try to be build a support group with the youth at the time. We try to do anything that was possible to quote unquote make their job easier. And yeah, there are some times where they're a little disappointed at us, but we grow and we mature as we get older. You look like you're gonna say something like, "Listen, hey, listen."
I think this is the whole point of this. Like we want to get two different perspectives, because we've walked in two different.
We want the truth.
We have a lot of similarities, and then we have a lot of differences, right? In my shoes, I know that I probably was very difficult from my father, and my parents, because like I said, I was already a pastor's kid from younger. So now when I'm getting into these ages where now I'm starting to build my own questions, I'm starting to have my own doubts, I'm going through some things, I didn't understand things. Like I started being like, why are you going through all this? Because like I said, we see what people don't see. Is like, why are you putting yourself through all this for people that again, there's at that time that I was like, I felt like they're not gonna be there for you, right? They're not gonna push, like they're not doing nothing for you. So why are you going through all this? But at a young age, we don't see, like we don't get it. So like I start to question. So I know I made my parents' life maybe a little more difficult than it could have been, right? And I was the same as you. Like but I love my parents. Like I wanted the best for them. I never wanted to disappoint them. And I don't think as children we ever want to disappoint our parents. But I know, like you said, it's probably a handful of times we did disappoint them, sadly. But I think we've taken those experiences and we learn from them now in the positions that we're in now, as married men, as now going through, me and my wife, our own prayer campaigns, and we're starting to get really what us sacrificing to reach a goal, we want a blessing. You know,
say that you guys are closer now.
Yeah, our relationship with our parents, me and my brother. I know my brother could probably say something.
I know that's important as being a pastor is that family.
Absolutely, I think because that's one thing they always, I loved about my family, and me and my brother always try. We speak honestly with our parents, and we've in our household. That's how my dad was with us. He was very honest, very candid with us. Like there was no sugarcoating stuff. It was just, I'm gonna let you know what it is, right? So in our household, it was like that. So we've always told them that, you guys, because I've learned this, and we see it in different pastoral families, the dynamics are different. Your dynamics are different than my dynamics, which is different than other pastoral dynamics, right? And we're human. We're gonna go through things, but how can a pastor, go through things when their family is not on the same page, right?
Yeah,
and that's what
that's very
that's
important.
how we got to. That's why I made it harder than it should have been for my dad at that point. We've grown from that, obviously. Our relationship is fantastic, but I know I wasn't the greatest son at times, right?
Hey.
But that's one thing my dad, my parents fought for is they fought for me and my brother, and no matter the situations we found ourselves in, my parents were always there for us. They never, because as a parent, you want your children to be in a better place than you ever were, right?
Yeah.
In the world, in our jobs, in the church, and when you're called into any kind of ministry, pastoral, whatever it is, there's a difference, like we talked about earlier, is walking in anointing and just walking in a ministry just to take a title and take positions, right?
When it's like the actual call.
Yeah, when we're walking in anointing, it's a different walk that you come into something with. And that's one thing, they've instilled in us, and I'm pretty sure your dad.
Yeah, no, I would say that, like, speaking a little bit about the family, is that, our fathers were pastors, but they were also our fathers. They were husbands.
They were heroes. Yeah.
They had to be our role models. They had, they knew that it wasn't just a church. It was like, no, it's my family. Yeah. And sometimes, through the ups and downs, they had to be strong. They had to, we see that a lot. It's like we would see what they went through, and we think, like, to ourselves now in our current state. Like, now, so would I be able to go through what my father went through now? And it's like, we think, like,
I think that's why we've talked about it. We used to second guess things a lot, or that's when the doubt creeped in. Like, is that something, like, I know me, I ran from the calling, even though I got it at a young age, for many years, because I didn't want to go through what I saw with my carnal eyes, what my family was going through. I just thought it was unfair. And I didn't understand it at that point, like, because in that stage, my mind wasn't focused on the right things. I wasn't in the right mindset to think. And we spoke about it earlier. It's like, yes, hardships come and these things it's gonna hurt, but the blessing
it's far greater.
Comes
and
with it,
and we can both testify to that.
Yeah.
That although, we don't want you guys watching and thinking that this is like horrible. No, it's not. It's not. The blessing is just stuff that goes on in our minds.
Yeah.
It's we know we live in a world of flesh and blood, but that's not where we fight our fight. It's in a spiritual realm, and our strength comes from Him. Yeah. That's the only way our fathers are able to do it. That's the only way we're able to one day do it, is to get that strength from Him. Yeah. Above all. And I know you got a verse lined up.
Always, man.
Line up.
And I want to leave you guys with Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, which is a known verse we should all know, right? This is my command: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for Yahweh is with you wherever you go. Facts. And like we spoke about, we're diving into more of the pastor's kid or pastorship, right? But just in ministry, period, right? No matter what you've been called to do, no matter what you feel that tug is pulling you towards, He promises that even with the fear, even with the doubt, even with the hard times, even where the times we feel like we can't go on, it's too much, right? It just says it there. The word says it there. Be strong, courageous, because He is going to be with you, right? And His strength, like we talked about earlier, the strength that we saw our fathers have wasn't their strength.
Supernatural.
Right? It wasn't their strength, because if it was their strength, they would have quit a long time ago. But they based their foundation on someone who's greater, the creator of the universe.
Of all,
right? And that's what we want to leave you guys today, is like, you have that doubt creeping in, go to Him, lay it down at His feet. And he's going to be the one to give you strength to overcome with any trials and tribulations, anything you're going through at the moment.
You know, he's done it for us, you know, and he will do it for you. Shout out to all the PKs out there,
Yes, sir.
You know, and if you're not a PK, you know, if you don't come from a family of pastorship, that doesn't disqualify you.
Nope.
You know, Yahweh can call who he wants, you know, and if you've gotten that calling from our Heavenly Father, embrace it. Don't be discouraged. You know, like
Don't
Gabe
run
just
like I
read.
did.
No, listen, be strong, be courageous. That's what we're here for. You know what I mean? We want to say that we love you guys. If you like the video, do us a favor, give us a like, comment down below, share it. Listen, this is all for the cause.
Subscribe.
And like I said before, my name is Zeke.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're just two dudes from church. Peace.